Hello everybody and welcome back to another weekly recap. I know it's a bit late, this normally comes out on Thursday, but as Jagex ended up delaying the update one day, I ended up being gone, so here it is on Sunday. This is going to be recapping the last week and a half roughly. Now in the weekly recap, I like to go over anything related to the old school RuneScape community this week. Now this week we did have a content update, which was mainly some changes to the new Darkmeyer update. Now this update wasn't exactly what most people were asking for, so we're going to have a look at it and see how impactful the changes are going to be. There is the gilenor gazette for June, which is going to outline future updates and just give kind of Jagex's thought process behind their updates. And on top of that, we're going to be going over community news and anything else I think is interesting this week. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and let's get started. Okay, so this week's update was called the Darkmeyer improvements, and this is pretty customary. Usually a week after a major content release, they usually tweak the content a bit. Make some bug fixes, change some experience rates, stuff like that. So let's have a quick look at exactly what they did. Now first up here, they made quite a few changes just to the city of Darkmeyer, pretty much anything that wasn't the hallowed sepulcher. Now first up here, the severed leg is now classified as a fun weapon, so as not to compete with the ham joint or the swift blade. Now the ham joint and the swift blade are kind of a weird niche item, but they have an attack speed of 3. They're pretty much the best in slot item on certain pures, so they kind of have a niche use, and because of that, they are actually kind of valuable. The ham joint being worth 1.2 mil and the swift blade being worth like 7 mil. However, with Darkmeyer, the severed leg was actually a 3-tick weapon as well, so a lot of people thought that that doesn't really seem fair because you can get it for essentially for free, because you can just pick it up off the ground, so that'd be kind of devaluing these other items, so they ended up changing that to just be a fun weapon and not a 3 attack speed weapon competing with the other two. Okay, the next notable change here is the Vir Noble outfit can now be stored in the player-owned house. As most people are limited on bank space, I see why they did that. Okay, now next up here, the mining experience from the day out mine has been increased, and the time before the deposits move have been made more consistent. Now the exact change they made here is they increased it from, I believe, 4 experience per shard to 5 experience, which is, I mean, it's a substantial increase, but the amount of experience you get total is still fairly low. Before the buff, you were probably getting around 6,000 or 7,000 experience per hour. Now you're going to get 8 to 9. So that's about a 25% increase. A couple of the shortcuts in Mauritania were broken for some reason, specifically the one from Barrows to Bergderot and from the Hollows to Morton, and those are now fixed. Okay, now the hallowed symbol, which you get from the hallowed sepulcher, can be used with the prayer book from the Great Brain Robbery, which is pretty good because the prayer book is very heavily used at the sepulcher, as it also works to cure your poison as well. Now the Mariaditch Laboratories is a new area and it's been added to the Konar's list of areas. The Mariaditch Laboratories are pretty good because there are blood veils there that are actually cannonable, which before now did not exist at all. Okay, so next up here, they actually ended up nerfing the blisterwood woodcutting method. Now first up, the value of blisterwood logs have been reduced, so you can't really alch them anymore. And on top of that, the amount of experience you get per log has been reduced to 52 from 76. Now I know a lot of people are a little bit sad about this because it was an interesting method. It was still worse than teak trees, but it kind of filled an interesting niche of woodcutting and magic training or alching. So I'm kind of interested to see what they do with that in the future, or if it was ever intended to be a training method at all. Okay, so next up here, there are quite a few changes to the hallowed sepulcher. Now this was seen as more of a nerf than most people anticipated. It's not entirely a nerf, some things are easier and some things are just worth less. Now first up here, they made quite a few changes to the actual sepulcher to make it easier to run through, easier to see certain traps, and generally just be a little bit less frustrating. Now because of that, that most likely increased the average speed to run through the sepulcher. Now for example, the bolt projectiles, which are infamously kind of hard to see, are now larger and they glow. The ghost in the hallowed sepulcher will now spawn after the loot is collected as to not interrupt your flow and actions. Sword traps will stop appearing where they shouldn't be, that's probably good. Bolt traps are now more forgiving when trying to move 2 tiles perpendicular to them. Personally, I found that quite annoying. You sometimes would hit the back of them even though they were nowhere near you. So hopefully that made a pretty big difference. You will now receive slightly more hallowed marks on floor 1, 2, and 3, but slightly fewer on floor 4 and 5. Now this change here I thought is what they would be doing for the experience rates as well, but that doesn't seem really to be the case. I think most people agreed that floors 1, 2, and 3 were a little bit underpowered compared to 4 and 5, even relative to the agility requirement needed for them. But now you are going to get more marks on floors 1, 2, and 3. Now if you do have time remaining, you can now use it to loot multiple coffins on floors 3 and 4. So for those going purely for rewards, you can now get them much quicker if you want to. And there's been a few cost changes, mainly the hallowed token is now 10 instead of 15. and the drop rate of the strange old lockpick has been adjusted as more people are going to be looting at a higher rate. Now they actually made a cross-the-board nerf on all of the experience rates. None of them ended up going up. Floor 5 was nerfed from 6,500 experience down to 6,000. The 4th floor was nerfed from 3,000 to 2,700. The 3rd floor was nerfed from 1,600 to 1,500. And the 2nd floor was nerfed from 900 to 850. So the higher level floors ended up getting the bulk of the nerf, and then lower level floors ended up getting a minor nerf. With that said though, to offset that a bit, floors 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 have had fairly substantial quality of life changes to make them a bit easier to run through. I'm not going to read through all of them, but pretty much every floor has had one of the traps made easier, more readable, or just generally quicker. So from initial reports, a lot of people are getting fairly similar experience rates, maybe a bit less though. So in the end, it looks like a pretty minor nerf for the Sepulcher. With that said though, I think a lot of people were actually expecting a buff, so we'll have to see where they go from here. Okay, and finally here, not related to Darkmeyer, there are a few pretty major changes here just at the end. Okay, first appeared the Slayer partner system has been closed indefinitely following several incidents where the system's features were manipulated in ways that were unintended for its purpose. What they were essentially referring to here is you were able to actually send a Slayer partner request to somebody, and it would actually make them stop moving. It would interrupt their action. So you're pretty much able to grief people doing the Inferno if they're doing on stream. So I'm not sure if they're ever going to bring that back, but for now it has been disabled. And as an interim measure, the Bounty Hunter emblem upgrades are now capped at 10 per day to limit farming. So yeah, Bounty Hunter is still a pretty big problem. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to fix it this time. They may just end up scrapping it. And that is it for today's game update. Okay, so next up here we have the Gilenor Gazette for June. I really like these things. They just give a big in-depth analysis on everything that the team is working on. Okay, so first up here they do a quick project update on everything in development. Now, really exciting news here. Leagues are now officially in development, which means the design has been picked. They're currently working on defining the list for relics and the tasks. That's underway. And they're also trying something we've never done before, retaining some elements after resetting a save game. I'm not exactly sure what they're referring to here, but I am curious. The Kingdom Divided quest is going to be the new quest in Zaya, which is going to add in some new Arceus spells. Work on that project is going to begin after the second league has been launched. Now, another update that is most likely going to come out soon after the second league is going to be the Soul Wars update. Currently, they're still working on attempting to make animation backporting possible. And finally here we have the Death update, which is still being tested. For the most part, it is done though, and they're still shooting for a late June release on this one, so that should be pretty soon. Okay, so I haven't really talked that much about the clan system, mainly because it's not that flashy, but it is a really good fundamental thing for the game to have. Now, the clan system has been developed quite a bit so far. They've now enabled 15 ranks. Right now, I think there's 6 or 7 default ones, but now you can enable 15 of them, or 16 if you include the clan owner. You're actually able to use a drag and drop menu, letting you assign different tiles to each rank. The usual military tiles are offered, along with various other tier systems, RuneScape medals, gems, color codes, and much more. The ranks will also receive icons. Now, similar to the current clan system, you can customize what each rank is permitted to take. The options are currently the basic ones like talking, kicking, etc., but more are on the way. Creating an expandable and flexible system is inevitably going to be a bit slower than making just a one-off feature, but in the end it's going to pay off in the long run, and it's going to be the basis for the Group Ironman system. Now, another pretty big thing in this Gilenor Gazette is the PvP vision. Now, they talk a bit about the return of Bounty Hunter and the fact that they are aware of the ongoing concerns around boosting. They have made a few changes today, but they're still assessing what to do next, and they're going to update us once a decision has been made. As they have stated earlier, if they're unable to deliver a quality experience, they will reconsider Bounty Hunter's place in old school RuneScape. Now, they proposed a few different PvP changes in the last poll blog. One of them was the removal of PvP worlds, which is probably one of the most divisive of the proposed ideas. So they have decided that they are not actually going to remove PvP worlds, so that's great news for Sea Engineer. They are also considering restricting wilderness access to a specific world, or a specific set of worlds. All of this is to attempt to make the wilderness more condensed and have more players in it. This one they're not quite sure about yet. They're still going to monitor and see what the community wants. Now, wilderness bosses are still on the agenda to get reworked, but they're not high up on the priority list as of yet, so it's still kind of a far off day for a release on that. Now, one of the big proposals for the PvP vision is a wilderness hub, which they've nicknamed right now Ferox's Enclave. The idea is kind of simple. They want to unite the wide variety of PvP and old school RuneScape and also create a new home for current and future content. The hub would offer a variety of PvP experiences. There would be the new LMS map, which is a ruined version of Varrock, which granted I think looks pretty cool. Now to the east there is a bridge which creates kind of a bottleneck to get into the Wilderness Hub or the Enclave. And now to the south there's going to be a banker and an entrance that is going to look very similar to the Grand Exchange. So as far as I'm aware, the entire enclave inside is going to be safe. So like I said earlier, the two main pieces of content that would be out there right now is Clan Wars, Last Man Standing, and just I guess Wilderness PvP. Let me know what you think about that. And that is pretty much it for this month's Gilenor Gazette. And that's pretty much it for content updates this week. Anyway guys, that is going to be it for today's video. In the hope of keeping the video not terribly long, I'm just going to be going over mainly the content updates this week. As we kind of missed an update last week, there's a lot of information to go over. So thanks for watching guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time.